Hey, thrilled to have you here, folks. We are very excited for this debate, as this is the Easter resurrection debate, as we are a day away from Easter. It's going to be a lot of fun. If this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, because we have many more debates to come. So for example, you'll see at the bottom right of your screen this Monday a tag team with Skylar Fiction and Dr. Josh on whether or not Christianity is rational with Craig and Caleb. So that'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we will see you there for that. And I want to let you know, though, I have linked today's speakers in the description box. That way, if you're listening and you're like, I like that, you can hear plenty more where that came from. So we are very excited for this one, folks. It's going to be a pretty easygoing, loose format. It's going to be 10 flexible minutes for the opening statements on each side, and then we'll go right into open conversation. Also, I want to give a huge thanks and positive shout out just to say thanks so much for all of your guys' support. I know that today, as well as the last several days, it's been like a heck, kind of ebbing and flowing. And we want to say thanks so much for your patience and hanging with us and being encouraging, stuff like that. Remember we used to have, was it like a year ago? We used to have these what's the word I'm looking for? We used to have these audio issues 24/7, worse than my audio is right now, because people are saying it's choppy. Appreciate you guys giving me that feedback. I'll try to work on that. But we made it. We got through it. So we're going to get through this, and we thank you so much for being here. With that, we're going to have SJ start out first. And so SJ, very happy to have both you and Tom here. The floor is all yours for that roughly 10-minute opening statement.
Okay, well, thank you, James. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited about this because today is Holy Saturday. It's a very holy day for Christians. Tomorrow is obviously Easter Sunday, and that's the time when Jesus resurrected. And so this is the most important time, arguably, of the entire year for Christians. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the situation here. So I am making the case that Jesus did resurrect. And I'll say the crucifixion topped all means of punishment is the most excruciating and humiliating. For this reason, when Jesus threatened the livelihood of the Pharisees by working miracles, serving as a beacon of light and hope for the poor and downtrodden, and finally affirming to them his divine nature, they demanded the Romans crucify him. And you can read about that in Mark 14. You can read about that passage. They wanted to retain their elevated positions in the temple, and Jesus posed a serious threat to them. Jesus knew what they had in store for him. 700 years before his crucifixion, the prophet Isaiah 53 spoke of the suffering servant who would be, quote, pierced for our transgressions. Around 1,000 years before, King David in Psalm 22 referred to the one forsaken by God who was surrounded by a pack of villains who pierced his hands and feet. The prophet Zechariah in 12:10 also drew attention to our coming Lord. He said, "And I will pour out on the house of David and its inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and grieve bitterly for him as one grieves for a firstborn son." Daniel 9 even predicted the timing of Jesus' crucifixion. His 77s less 7, or 483-year countdown, began after the decree of Artaxerxes in 444 BC and ended during the Passion Week in 33 AD, when Jesus was crucified. These were all written hundreds of years prior to the time when the Persians invented the crucifixion as a means of execution, which estimators have indicated is between 400 and 300 BC. Malachi also predicted the timing of Jesus' arrival, as he noted Jesus would appear in the Second Temple in 3:1, which the Romans destroyed in the year 70. So we have a time period from this. Numerous men had claimed to be the Messiah around Jesus' time, yet all but Jesus' ministry died out. Why was claiming to be the Messiah so prevalent? It's because the prophesied time was at hand. The Jews were looking for a Messiah then. This is why King Herod, upon finding out the Messiah had been born in Bethlehem, as prophesied in Micah 5:2, ordered the murder of all of the boys under 2. He didn't want to lose any of his power to a higher power. In Sanhedrin 97A and 97B, their expectations were clarified. So here's what the Jews believed about the timing, and you guys pay very close attention to this. The school of Eliyahu taught 6,000 years is the duration of the world. 2,000 of the 6,000 years are characterized by chaos, or from Adam to Abraham. 2,000 years are characterized by Torah, from the era of the patriarchs until the end of the Mishnaic period, from Abraham to the Anno Domini era, and 2,000 years are the period of the coming of the Messiah. So I just added in the era times in there. That is the course that history was to take, but due to our sins, that time frame has increased. The Messiah did not come after 4,000 years passed, and furthermore, the years that elapsed since then, which were to have been the Messianic era, have elapsed. Early Jews knew the Isaiah 53 passage referred to the Messiah as recorded in Midrash Rabbah, Ruth 2:14, and here's the quote. He is speaking of the King Messiah. Come hither, draw near to the throne, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. This refers to the chastisements, it is said, but he was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. They also knew the prophecies referred to two types of Jewish Messiah, as evidenced in the Sanhedrin 98a. If the Messiah, and here's a quote, of Israel will be righteous, the Messiah will come in the clouds of heaven. If they will not be righteous, he will come as a poor man riding upon an ass. And of course, Zechariah 9:9 says, see your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Who rides donkeys anymore? Jesus reconciled these seemingly divergent messiahs. He is both the suffering servant and the glorious king who will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. His crucifixion was a sacrifice of the strongest for the benefit of the weakest, which is an inversion of the survival of the fittest concept in Darwinian evolution. On Calvary, he reconciled God's perfect love, mercy, and justice. Jesus appeared as a humble servant who came to change the world. His revolutionary teaching stated that the meek would inherit the earth and sinners would be saved. Meekness is not weakness, but restrained power. He fulfilled Mosaic law and gave Christians a new covenant to love God above all and to love one's neighbor as oneself. He replaced an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth by instructing people to love and forgive their enemies. He instilled a sense of hope when there was little. He forgave even his worst enemies, the Pharisees and Romans who crucified and mocked him. Here's what he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Who heard Jesus on the cross in its final moments? His mother, his female disciples, and his beloved disciple John witnessed Jesus' crucifixion. His other disciples, such as Peter, had gone into hiding. They did not want to suffer the same fate as Jesus, and their hopes that Jesus would reign in their presence had been squashed. Today, back in history, they would have been very depressed. Jesus' brother James had tried to stop his ministry. Peter denied even knowing Jesus 3 times to save his own skin. But then something miraculous occurred. In his letter to the city of Corinth in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul reported an early memorized creed, which stated that after Jesus' crucifixion and death, he appeared to Peter and his other disciples, and to 500, and then to his half-brother James, before appearing to Paul, also known as Saul, the one abnormally born. Jesus appeared to individuals and groups over a period of 40 days before he rose into the heavens. The Holy Spirit then descended upon Jesus' disciples, and they were empowered, emboldened, and blessed. They no longer feared death because they had seen their Messiah overcome it. They spent decades preaching for Jesus, despite being jailed, beaten, and stoned, and eventually martyred by burning, boiling, crucifixions, and beheadings. People don't willingly die for something they know not to be true, and Jesus' early disciples were uniquely positioned to know whether what they were claiming was true. They said they saw the risen Christ, and their bravery in the face of gory persecutions and death proved it. The resurrection forms the foundation of Christianity. As St. Paul has indicated, without the resurrection, we have nothing. By overcoming death, Jesus gave us reasons to know his words to be true. He said, destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days. And he did. He gave good on his word. How is it possible that a carpenter, a tax collector, some fishermen, and a tent maker from an obscure ancient Near Eastern village could start a movement that completely upended the world? Nothing is possible with God. During Jesus' time, many made claims to be the Savior prophesied to come in the first century in the Jewish scriptures, such as Daniel and the writings. Yet when they died, their followings died out. Christianity grew despite heavy and sporadic persecutions under emperors such as Nero, Decian, and Diocletian, and other leaders such as Pliny the Younger. By 313, when Constantine finally granted Christians legal protections, Christianity had between 5 and 6 million adherents. Some have discounted the resurrection by claiming that miracles are not evidenced, yet we have evidence of miracles today. In the early 1980s, Barbara Comiskey Snyder was curled up in her bed after 15 years of enduring multiple sclerosis. She was blind, wheelchair bound, and barely able to breathe. Her doctors had decided if her lungs collapsed, which they expected, they wouldn't revive her. She was too far gone and had no quality of life. Then she heard the words, "My child, get up and walk." Her atrophy disappeared, her eyesight was restored, and she regained her ability to breathe properly. She got out of bed and found herself walking. Even her curled up feet had been healed. Later that day, she went into her church and walked down the aisle in front of a shocked and cheering audience. She had always been in a wheelchair. Decades have passed since that time, and Barbara is still without MS today. Jesus heals, and Jesus loves. In conclusion, I have demonstrated that the Jews in ancient times were expecting two types of Messiah, a mighty king and a lowly and humble Savior who would come riding on a donkey. They further were expecting that the Savior would arrive in the time frame when Jesus arrived. Jesus fulfilled biblical passages. In fact, he fulfilled 330 Old Testament passages that said he would be pierced for our transgressions, which were written hundreds of years prior to the crucifixion. We have substantial extra biblical support for his ministry, crucifixion, and his disciples' claims that he rose from the dead, and I'm prepared to present those if needed. Jesus' disciples were uniquely positioned to know whether what they believed was true, and many went to their deaths rather than recanting the truth. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, SJ. We will now switch it over to TJump for his opening statement. And very excited for this one. Just want to let you know, in addition to this debate, as we had mentioned, Skylar Fiction, who is in the live chat at the moment, he and Dr. Josh will be coming on next Monday for that tag team debate. Tonight, by the way, just want to quick mention, because I don't want to violate your expectations. So I want to give you a heads up. The Team Skeptic Flat Earth Aussie debate is probably going to be postponed to next weekend. So we probably won't have one tonight. Sorry about that, folks. But we are going to try to sort some stuff out with that debate and hopefully have it next weekend if we can. So thanks so much. And Tom, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so the topic of the debate is, did Jesus rise from the dead? And the way we address this question is the same way we address every similar question, like, did the flying man that Doug mentions actually fly? Did Harry Potter exist? Did Muhammad split the moon in half? Did Santi Sai Baba create dust from his hand? All of those claims we addressed in the exact same way. It's with evidence. And, well, what is evidence? Evidence is what we use to differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real. So if I told you I saw a dog, that would be reasonable to believe. But if I told you I saw a unicorn, that would not be reasonable to believe. The difference between these two claims is that dogs have an implicit empirical basis. Meaning there's lots of things about dogs that we know that I just haven't mentioned in that statement, like their phylogeny, taxonomy, DNA, genetic makeup, chemical composition, their fossils, bones, how to train them, what they're allergic to. There's lots of things about dogs that we know scientifically that I just didn't mention in the statement I saw a dog. But none of that exists for unicorns. So in the statement, I saw a unicorn, the only evidence there is that the claim that I saw it, which isn't enough. In the example of a dog, it's my testimony in addition to the empirical evidence. And so it's reasonable to believe because it has the combination of those two things. Whereas in the case of I saw a unicorn, it just has my testimony, and so it's not reasonable to believe. So the difference between these two claims is that one has an empirical basis along with the testimony, and one is just the testimony. Testimony on its own is not sufficient to justify beliefs about things existing in the world. And so anything that lacks an empirical basis isn't reasonable to believe based off testimony. That means miracles, magic, mythical creatures, the paranormal, supernatural, UFOs. And this applies to all religions and all such claims in everywhere in the world. It doesn't make a difference what they are, including the resurrection of Jesus. So because the only evidence we have for the resurrection is the testimony of people thousands of years ago, none of that's evidence that it actually happened. That's like saying, I saw a unicorn. It would be unreasonable to believe that based off of the testimony. So in order to justify the belief that Jesus rose from the dead, you would need empirical evidence of miracles actually occurring at some point. And then you could infer that that was a miracle like these other ones that we've demonstrated. But no miracles have ever been demonstrated to have occurred. They're all fail every scientific test we've ever done. So we have no way to differentiate miracles being real things rather than imaginary things. They all seem to just be imaginary things. And so it's reasonable to infer the assertion that Jesus rose from the dead is also an imaginary thing. The fact that the apostles died for their beliefs doesn't make a difference. Like if there was a flat earther who died for his belief that the world was flat, would that add any credibility to it being true? No. What about 10 flat earthers? If 10 flat earthers died, would that be evidence for flat earth? No. What about 100, 1,000, 10,000, 10 million? It makes no difference. The amount of people who die for their beliefs does not add any credibility that their beliefs are true. The fact that people believe them or genuinely believe their beliefs isn't evidence that it's true. The fact that they were willing to be persecuted for their beliefs isn't evidence that they're true. I mean, you don't hear in a scientific debate someone saying, Bruno Giordano and Galileo, they were persecuted for their beliefs that the world was round. That's evidence that the world is, or that the Earth goes around the sun. And that's evidence that the Earth goes around the sun. Like, no, that's not evidence of anything. That's just their persecution isn't evidence to the truth of their beliefs. It's just evidence that they believe them. And so that's not actually evidence. The accounts are just not evidence of the resurrection. You need that empirical basis to demonstrate miracles aren't just imaginary before you could conclude that Jesus rose from the dead. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Tom. We will now switch into open discussion mode. By the way, I want to let you know we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you have a question, fire it into the old live chat. And if you tag me with an @ModernDayDebate in the live chat with your question, makes it easier for me to not miss those questions. And Super Chat is also an option. In that case, you are not only able to ask a question to one of the speakers, but you can also make a comment toward one of the speakers, to which they, of course, would get to respond to. We ask that you be your regular friendly selves for that. And Super Chats will also push your question or comment to the top of the list for the Q&A. So with that, thanks so much. The floor is all yours, Tom and Dr. S.J.
Okay. Well, I want to say thanks to Tom. I'm glad I watched two of his conversations actually before this morning. I listened to the one with you, James, and I listened to one with Jonathan Sheffield, and I heard some similar arguments with respect to the unicorn and that sort of thing. So I had my mind a little time to think about those arguments. So one thing I just want to mention is we have a lot of evidence. Now, one of the ways that you would go about determining whether or not something is true is including evidence, but also including the testimonies of hostile witnesses. So if I don't know if it's possible for me to share a slide. Actually, I'm not sure if I can do that here. How would I share a slide in here?
There is a screen share at the bottom of your window.
Screen? Oh, I see it. Okay, perfect. Okay, let me just share a screen.
By the way, this is a chance for me. I know that it's controversial, man. The one known as Praise I Am has actually saved the day. Our internet crashed here at my home. We have enough to use a video chat, but not enough to stream through OBS. So Praise is saving the day. You might not like him, but you have to give credit where it's due. And so I do want to say thanks so much to Praise, who I'll link in the description for his help. And Converse Contender saved us on the last stream that just ended with Ask Yourself and Sterling on veganism. So thanks so much to those guys. If you haven't met Praise, he's a twin brother of Skylar Fiction. So yeah, terrific guys. All right, thanks so much, SJ. The floor is all yours again.
I exited. I can't share it, I guess. Oh, shoot. Okay, so I'm not going to, I guess I can't share the screen, so I'm just going to tell you what my screen says. So we have extra biblical hostile support from quite a few people that, for example, that Jesus was crucified is listed under Josephus, Tacitus, Lucian, and Celsus in the Talmud. And I'm mentioning the hostile support because one of the arguments that people make a lot of times is he's saying the evidence from the apostles isn't valid. He's probably going to discount anything that's in the Bible or written by the church fathers. So I'm just showing you the basic facts. And if you put these together, in this kind of similar to Gary Habermas's minimal facts argument, but we've got this basic story that even putting that together without the Gospels, without the Bible, without the testimonies of all of the apostles, we still have that he was crucified. He died on the Passover, according to the Talmud. Earthquakes accompanied his death, according to Fliegen and Thales. And also I found that in some academic literature that they have evidence of seismites. He was buried in a tomb as per Jewish customs and law to keep the ground pure. That was in Deuteronomy 21, 22 to 23. Jews even buried malefactors, according to Josephus and Tacitus. Disciples said he appeared to them alive 3 days after the crucifixion. According to the Josephus, the Christians were martyred, according to Suetonius and Tacitus. Christians who refused to recant were martyred, according to Pliny the Younger and Trajan. And his followers made an oath not to commit wicked deeds. And so included in those wicked deeds would be lying, I would imagine. And so I think they had everything that they wanted to do everything to be telling the truth. And I think that it's pretty clear that he resurrected. So that's what I would say. I'd say that the evidence that Tom would probably discount wouldn't be the evidence from the hostile witnesses, but I could be wrong.
Well, I wouldn't discount any of that. So yeah, I agree Jesus existed. I agree he was crucified. I agree he was buried. I agree maybe that there were earthquakes after it. I have no problem with any of that. The only part that isn't reasonable to believe is that he rose from the dead. That's the only part that's not reasonable. So I agree Jesus existed. So but none of the evidence you presented was evidence he rose from the dead.
So what motivation would you say would the apostles have to make up a lie, especially because they had made an oath to tell the truth?
They believed it. So they believed it. That's totally fine too.
Okay. So I think we're done, James.
So, but that's not evidence that actually happened. That's the point, is that it's not reasonable to believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead just because some people believed it. Like there are people who believe the world is flat. That doesn't make it reasonable to believe the world is flat. There are people who believe that Muhammad split the moon in half and are willing to die for their belief. That doesn't mean it's true. The fact that people believed it isn't evidence it's true.
So it's not just that they believed it, though. I think you need to pay attention to exactly what they're saying they believed. They said that they saw Jesus over a period of 40 days in multiple forms and at multiple places, and multiple groups of people saw him. So it's not just one person like Muhammad making a claim or something like that. It's not even just a belief. It's something that they're saying is part of their very existence. And for 40 years, actually even more in some cases, but they just preached regardless of the fact that they were persecuted, crucified. So I think we have a pretty strong case. And I think Charles Colson said something that makes a lot of sense right here when he was talking about this. He basically said that he was comparing the resurrection with the Watergate, and he says, I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me. How? Because 12 men testified that they had seen Jesus raised from the dead. Then they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Everyone was beaten, tortured, stoned, and put in prison. They would not have endured it if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world, and they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me 12 apostles could keep alive for 40 years?
Okay, but none of that's actually evidence. So the fact that they believed it and kept believing it isn't evidence it's true. I mean, the flat earthers believe the world is flat. The fact that they keep believing it and die for their beliefs doesn't add any evidence to the world being flat. Like if there is a flat earther who devotes his life to the world being flat, no matter how much he's persecuted or tortured or killed, and people kill him, that adds exactly zero evidence to the fact that the world is flat. And if there are 10 flat earthers who go through just a lifetime of torture and just never recant, and then they get killed for their belief, that's still no evidence that the world is actually flat. There's 100, 1,000, a million flat earthers who all go through all of this torture and never recant. That's still zero evidence that the world is flat. So the fact that they believed it isn't evidence. And the fact that they saw Jesus after his death also isn't evidence, because that happens all the time. We know that bereavement delusions happen to like 15% of the population. That's 15% of 7 billion. Yes, there are billions of people who see their loved ones after they die as just a part of how the brain works. There's nothing about anything you said that's actually evidence for a resurrection.
I would make an argument that, well, in the first place, bereavement delusions tend to happen for older people. The vast majority of people having these delusions, it's been shown, are seniors. And so the apostles were not older people in general. They were probably a younger group of people. I think John and James, his brother, might have been the youngest of the apostles, and Peter was a little bit older, but it would be something that would be pretty unlikely. And I'm saying this is not comparable to the flat earthers. Flat earthers are not, as far as I know, they're not being persecuted for their beliefs, hunted down over the next bunch of decades because they believe in the flat earth. So I think it's a false equivalency.
Actually, I wasn't making a comparison there saying they were. I'm saying if we hunted down flat earthers and we just persecuted them and tortured them, and they all just never recanted, that would still not be evidence for their belief. So even if that's true, that we just torture all of them and they would never recant, that isn't evidence. Like the fact that they choose to believe, even in the face of being tortured and killed, isn't evidence it's true. That those literally aren't, that's like saying, I'm holding a cup, therefore the spaghetti monster exists. There's literally no connection between those two things. Secondly, bereavement delusions happen for lots of people of lots of ages. Most of them are old people. That's totally fine, but they happen for lots of people of lots of ages. So it's like 15% of everyone on the planet experiences these things. It's not a rare occurrence at all. So again, none of that was actually evidence for the resurrection. That's evidence for people claimed they saw a dead person and people died for their beliefs, which I'm happy to grant both of those things, but neither of those actually indicate resurrection occurred.
I'd say, I disagree with you wholeheartedly, but I also want to say, with the bereavement delusion, how many people, after they say that they saw their loved ones, spend the next 40 years in and out of jails, being stoned, crucified, beaten, beheaded? Yeah, we don't see that with the bereavement delusion. We also don't see people having a bereavement delusion saying that their loved one visibly appeared to them physically and ate with them.
Yes, we
That's
do.
not something that we see with
That
bereavement
is
delusions.
actually something we see with bereavement delusion. We have both auditory and visual hallucinations of those things happening. But again, you mentioned the torturing and again, like, it doesn't matter how much they're tortured. It makes zero difference at all how much they're tortured. That doesn't add anything at all to the argument. It's like, if we didn't torture them, if we gave them lots of money and said, we'll give you money for believing in Jesus or whatever, that still wouldn't be evidence or counter evidence for anything they believed. Even if they recanted and said, after like getting a pinprick, and said, we stopped believing in Jesus after this, that wouldn't be evidence against Jesus. Like, what they believe or choose to believe after the fact and whether or not they're tortured or rewarded is completely irrelevant. It's zero difference. It's like saying, I have cheese puffs. Like, it's just an irrelevant fact. It makes no difference to the evidence. Whether, like, we can just take it into the context of Galileo. Galileo was persecuted. Does that add evidence to his hypothesis? No. If Galileo was rewarded, would that add or take away evidence to his hypothesis? No. The evidence of the claim is irrelevant to what happens to the person who makes it. It literally has no bearing at all. There's not evidence whether or not they were tortured. It's irrelevant, completely irrelevant.
Okay, that's what you feel. So what evidence would convince you that Jesus resurrected?
Testable predictions.
Testable predictions. So
Yes.
if anything happened in history, we have to be able to test it?
If anything happened in history that doesn't have an empirical basis, we have to then test it, yes. So miracles, magic, mythical creatures, the paranormal, supernatural, UFOs, any of those things in history would have to be demonstrated to actually exist in the world and not be imaginary before it was reasonable to infer they happened in the past.
Okay, so right now, what did you make of the Barbara Comiskey Snyder story that I told you? Because that story would be testable. You can actually go to her doctor's writings. You can talk to her. She's still alive right now.
The healing, like, people get healed all the time from different things. It's usually medical, but you'd have to make a testable prediction, not just say, I can explain this event we don't understand as it being a miracle. That isn't evidence of a miracle. You'd have to actually say, if miracles are true, I predict that if we do some set of events, we'll get this result. You can't just say, I can explain all these things that we know happened in the past with a miracle. That's just post hoc rationalization. So a testable prediction is to say, if my hypothesis is true, here is something I'm going to predict is going to happen that we don't know yet, and then confirm that thing. Just looking back at the past and saying, I can explain all of these things and call it a miracle isn't evidence. Like, I can call it magic, or I can call it unknown natural explanations. Like, just labeling the unknown explanation or making up an explanation isn't evidence. For the evidence, you need to go to the future and say, if my explanation is true, therefore I can test this and get a result.
So if we could show that miracles occur today, would that be evidence to you that there could have been miracles that occurred in the past?
Yes.
Okay, so here's a couple of quotes. So there's a Pew study called Spirit and Power. It's a 10-country survey of Pentecostals. 200 million claim to have witnessed miraculous healings. Then there's also this other one called from Edmund Tang, Yellers and Healers, Pentecostalism and the Study of Grassroots Christianity in China. And his quote is, all Christian churches in China practice some form of healing. In fact, according to some surveys, 90% of new believers cite healing as a reason for their conversion. This is especially true in the countryside, where medical facilities are often inadequate or non-existent. So I think there is some evidence that miracles are still happening today. And so I think that would give us at least open up one's mind to the possibility that miracles could have happened in ancient history.
I'm not seeing any evidence for miracles there. So there's people who believe it's miracles. They experience something they can't explain and they label it a miracle. That isn't actually evidence of a miracle. That's just something they can't explain, which they're labeling a miracle. Again, I could just label it magic, or I could label it aliens messing with them for fun, or I could label it an unknown natural cause, or it could be a known natural cause that we can perfectly well explain in science. They just didn't realize it and labeled it a miracle. So that isn't really evidence of miracles, the fact that they think it's a miracle. That's not how evidence works. You have to actually demonstrate it is a miracle. You have to demonstrate that that hypothesis has predictive power, not just we can label the past things miracles.
So one of the ways that you find evidence or you can gather evidence is something they called subjective content analysis. And so you're probably familiar with that. But what you do if you want to identify if there's evidence of miracles is you gather up all of the evidence from people, you gather all the testimonies, and you look for resounding themes. And so if you've got 200 million people basically saying about the same thing with respect to miracles and their own healing, and maybe the healing coming right after prayers, that's how Barbara Comiskey Snyder came about, by the way. They were praying for her in a Chicago radio station, and she was on the verge of death. Honestly, her lungs were about to collapse. She barely could breathe. She couldn't see. She was blind too. All of that disappeared with the words, "My child, get up and walk." I think it's a powerful case for God. I've got a newspaper thing I'd show you if I could show my screen from Rockford, Illinois, where they actually printed this whole thing back in the early 80s. So it's a pretty good testimony, and she's still around today. So I think that if we have evidence of something like that occurs right after a prayer, I think you got a pretty good case for Jesus still working in us today.
No, that would be a post hoc. What's it? I forget what it is. Post hoc something hoc, where something happens, therefore it happened because of that thing. Like we can say you rubbed a magic rabbit's foot and got healed, therefore it's due to the magic rabbit's foot. But no, it was just happened at the right time, at the right place. And so it was a random association. For it to actually be attributed to the miracle or to the prayer, you'd have to say, does prayer have this effect at a more than chance rate? If prayer has no more effect at these miraculous healings than rubbing a magic rabbit's foot, then the prayer probably doesn't do anything. It's not evidence of the prayer. It's evidence that there are healings that occur that we don't understand. That's it. So in the case of miracles and prayer, all the prayer studies we've ever done fail completely. They give no more evidence than chance. So it's not the prayer. Attributing it to the prayer is just to get a post hoc rationalization. You're saying, I did a prayer, the healing occurred, therefore the healing occurred because of the prayer. But that's not evidence. Again, for that to be evidence, you would need to show that the prayer does this more often than just rubbing a magic rabbit's foot, and it doesn't. In all the scientific tests, we've shown that it's post hoc ergo proctor hoc. Thank you, Nathan Ormond. So that isn't actually evidence. The fact that you had a prayer and you had a healing, you're only assuming that because those happened close to each other in time, that the healing was due to the prayer. But that's not evidence, because you could do the same thing with rubbing a magic rabbit's foot, or using voodoo, or using homeopathy. The exact same arguments are used across pseudosciences all across the world. We know that kind of argument doesn't work. Just like we know that the amount of people being tortured has no relevance to what they believe to be true. There's just literally no connection between those two arguments.
Okay, so I want to talk about what you just mentioned with the prayer studies. There's a big study that was funded by the Templeton Foundation, and of course they wanted to probably show that prayers do work. But what they did was was flawed. It was flawed in a whole bunch of different ways. But what they did was they went into a hospital and they had people pray for. They had a couple of groups of people. They had a control group and they had a group that people would be praying for. All of the people in the hospital were about to go for an operation. Okay. And so with the control group, they didn't have anybody pray for him. But with the other group, the one that they were going to try to prove that prayers were working, they asked some people who'd never met him before. They gave him very little information about the people. People were praying from a distance. Actually, one of the sects of people who were doing that was a group that they weren't evangelicals in any case. Just say that these people were not evangelicals
Do you mind
praying.
if I interrupt for a second?
Well, let me just finish this thing. So
I wanted to just mention, like, I mean, I understand that you can say the Templeton Foundation was flawed, and I can just grant that. Okay, I can say the Templeton Foundation was flawed, but that doesn't mean you would need to make a study that isn't flawed and show it works, and that hasn't ever been done. So even if you're right, that doesn't help your case at all.
Well, let me tell you why I'm right. So the reason I'm right here is because the group had no way to control the prayers from the loved ones in the control group. So there could be prayers coming in for both groups from loved ones, and those prayers would probably be very sincere, very much directed at God. And so that's why they were unable to find a difference, because everybody's going for surgery. So at that time, you're always praying for your loved ones if you're somebody who's a believer. And in a country like the United States, the vast majority of people are believers. And so you have that situation. So you can't control the prayers from the loved ones. So that's why the study is flawed.
So as I said, I can just grant the study is flawed. That doesn't mean anything. So what you need is a study that isn't flawed, that actually supports your conclusion, and there aren't any. They all fail.
Well, it's impossible to conduct one of those kind of studies. That's why.
Well, then you have no way to show that your explanation isn't imaginary, because I can say it's impossible to do a study on an invisible ethereal dragon that breathes heatless fire. Therefore, we can't disprove it. Well, then I can just always say it's there, even though it's undetectable. It makes no difference into anything ever. It has no impact at all. which makes it unfalsifiable. So it's useless. So the same thing would apply to miracles. If there's no way to show it does anything differently than just random chance, then there's no way to show it's not just imaginary and random chance is just doing it on its own. So if you were granting that there is no way to do a study to actually show that miracles are not imaginary, then you're just admitting that there is no way to show that your belief isn't just imaginary and made up.
No, I'm not saying anything about miracles. I was talking about prayers. So I'm saying there's no way to do a study with prayers in a country where you have a lot of people who believe.
Oh, well, the studies have been done in countries all over the world with
that's
majority Christians and minority non-Christians. So it's the same across all religions and non-religions equally in all countries. It's just, there's no difference at all. But I was not specifically referring to prayer. So any testable predictions about miracles, prayer would be a kind of potential miracle, would be sufficient. Doesn't need to be about prayer.
So, and just to go back to Barbara Comiskey Snyder, in case you didn't hear this part, she heard the words, "My child, get up and walk," and was suddenly able to walk. I think that in alone itself is evidence, again, that Jesus is still working in this world pretty hard. I'd also say that you didn't address the fact that how did Christianity go from this little obscure sect in the middle of the ancient Near East with a carpenter, led by a carpenter and a bunch of fishermen? How did some group like that suddenly become so powerful without the influence of God to have between 5 and 6 million followers in the first 300 years to 280 years at a time when basically people were persecuting these people? There was no material reason for them to believe. They didn't get wealth, they didn't get fame, they didn't get money, power, they didn't get anything like that. So how did it get so big? And what was motivating these people to do a lie if they're saying that they're talking about Jesus always telling the truth, and they wanted to tell the truth? What would motivate the apostles to do what they did?
Well, the first thing is you said Barbara heard words and somehow that's evidence of magic. Again, that would just be the post hoc ergo propter hoc. Hearing the words and then associating those words to the miracle isn't evidence until you can actually demonstrate that there is some connection between those things, just like rubbing the magic rabbit's foot. If you rub the magic rabbit's foot and then have a healing right after, you would have to show that the magic rabbit's foot does this at a more than chance rate, because it could have just been chance. Just the fact that she heard words isn't evidence that those words caused a miracle. It's just evidence she heard words. The growth of Christianity is irrelevant. I mean, I can explain it in lots of different ways. There's lots of religions that have grown far faster than Christianity, like Falun Gong has grown far faster than Christianity did. There's Mormonism growing about at the same rate as Christianity when it was first initiated. Hinduism grew in the same kind of a way. They're persecuted in the same way. There's lots of ways for it to grow, but even if I just granted that Christianity was the only one that ever grew this fast, that's still not evidence of anything. Like the fact that an ideology grows, or lots of people believe it at a certain rate, has zero evidence that it's true. I mean, if flat earth belief just started to grow and everyone started to believe it, that wouldn't make it true. So the fact that lots of people believe it is just a bandwagon fallacy that doesn't actually give you any evidence for it being true. It's just lots of people chose to believe it at that time. So I don't see how you think that's evidence.
Well, what about the apostles? What motivation did they have?
Well, I think they believed it. So that would be their motivation. They believed it, but that's still not evidence it's true.
So they believed it. They said they saw the risen Christ. You're saying they believed they saw the risen Christ. How are you saying that they didn't actually see the risen Christ? What's your argument?
Delusions. Very
so
common.
you think they all had these shared delusions. So all of these people, they said 500, up to 500 saw the risen Christ, but you think that they were all just delusional?
Well, the 500 is questionable because it's not actually 500. It's one guy claiming that 500 saw it, which there's no testimony from the 500. We just have testimony of the guy who wrote and said 500 people saw it. And that's the same thing of people writing to say 1 million people saw UFOs in Roswell. It's like, unless you can actually back that up with the testimony from the 500, it's just an assertion. But even if I grant that, we grant the 500 people all saw it, yeah, that's still better explained by a bereavement delusion, a shared bereavement delusion, than a miracle, because we actually have evidence bereavement delusions happen. We have no evidence miracles happen. So if we want to explain an event, it's better to explain it with things we already know happen and can explain it than to assert a new thing that has no basis in reality can do it. Because I could say a magic leprechaun causes delusion, or in all of them at the same time, or aliens just created a giant projection screen of Jesus for kicks and giggles, but those aren't good explanations because we have no basis for those things, just like a miracle isn't a good explanation. A better explanation is we have natural things that we know can do that, like bereavement delusions, and so that would be a better explanation than asserting new things we have no evidence for to explain an event.
So to put your argument together with his bereavement delusion, here's what you're saying. So and let me see if I get this correct. So you're saying that so you've got Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times and went into hiding. He wasn't there when Jesus was crucified. You've got Paul, who was originally persecuting Christians and making sure that they were all jailed and put in prison. And in some cases, he was actually standing at the feet of people who were being killed, like St. Stephen's. And you have James, Jesus' half-brother, who tried to stop his ministry. So there's 3 people right there who are among many who said that they saw the risen Christ. And so then you say, then you see what happened to them. After some point, they all said they saw the risen Christ, and they started preaching for him for decades. Suddenly, Peter, who denied him and done some pretty embarrassing things in the Gospels, is going around in the book of Acts, healing people. He's doing all sorts of things, and he's able to get a group of people to follow him because he's committing miracles in Jesus' name. You've got James, the half-brother, who tried to stop his ministry. Jesus appeared to him too, and now he's writing books in there, and he ended up being killed. He worked in Jerusalem at one of the temples, and he was killed, martyred for his work, and that was evidenced by Josephus. And then you've got Paul. I'm sorry, no, I already mentioned Paul. James, Peter, yeah, Paul, basically, I mentioned him already. So we've got these 3 people who all changed their minds, came around after Jesus was crucified. So if this was just a delusion, what motivation would they have to say, no, it's not a delusion? We basically saw the risen Christ, and they were beaten, stoned, jailed. I mean, Paul could have had a pretty easy life if he didn't, if he just, towed the line. He wouldn't have been martyred.
Well, again, so whether or not he had an easy life or a hard life is just irrelevant. It has nothing to do with any of the evidence. It makes no difference one way or the other, just like saying, I'm holding a cup, therefore God. It's just completely irrelevant. It makes no difference at all. If it was a delusions you don't think are delusions, because then it wouldn't be a delusion. You think they're real. That's what makes them a delusion. So they saw a delusion. Like it's very common for people who persecute a demographic and then feel guilt for it to have bereavement delusions of the people they killed or the ideology behind the people they killed and have conversions to those. So Paul converting to Christianity after he tortured and killed lots of Christians isn't really surprising. And he had a bereavement delusion of Jesus and then started to follow Jesus because of his guilt. Absolutely none of that is special in any way. And saying that they got lots of followers is pretty not surprising at all. There's a Russian guy right now, it starts with a V, I forgot his name, who claims to be Jesus, and he has thousands of followers. Like, there's people on Instagram who post cats videos who have thousands of followers. This is not a surprising fact that people follow people they admire who are charismatic and interesting. So none of that is spectacular. None of that is evidence of miracles. The growth rate isn't evidence of miracles. The fact that people believe it isn't evidence of miracles. The fact that they saw people after they claimed to have seen people after they died isn't evidence of miracles. All of those are explained really easily with natural things. Like there's no evidence there at all. I mean, the flat earth actually has more evidence because at least they can claim to see the world looking flat from a distance. That's at least something that could qualify as evidence, but the resurrection doesn't have any. It's just an assertion, and that's it.
Okay, so I want to say a couple of things to what you said. One is you pointed out to some examples in modern times of people who are following certain people. But as Gamaliel pointed out in Acts 5, when a lot of these people came up, like Theudas, and he mentioned Judas the Galilean, so when a lot of these people come to power and they have people following them and then they die, eventually the cult dies out. And so Jesus is kept going on. So actually that gives us evidence that it's true. Wait, let me just finish. The other religions that you mentioned before don't have somebody saying that he resurrected from the dead. We don't. It's the Jesus is situation and circumstance is not comparable to all of those other religions you mentioned. And the other thing is Paul certainly didn't have a bereavement delusion. Paul wasn't bereaving Jesus. In fact, he was busy persecuting Jesus. So you can't explain Paul with your bereavement delusion. And the last thing I want to say is delusions, you don't have mass delusions. That's like saying you could share a dream. It's absolutely impossible to share a delusion.
All right. So the first thing is, again, Esther, you keep bringing up things that have no evidence at all. They're just random, unassociated facts. I can say there's a tree outside and claim that's evidence of a God. Clearly, that isn't evidence of anything. It's just a random, useless fact. Saying that they were persecuted is just a random, useless fact. It's not evidence of anything. Secondly, yes, Paul could definitely have a bereavement delusion. People who will persecute, like Nazis who would persecute and kill Jews, would feel guilt and have bereavement delusions of Jews or Jesus or their religious beliefs and gods and see God afterward and have visions and change. That's a really common thing. So yes, people who persecute and like Paul would very likely have a bereavement, more likely than anybody else actually. But so that's easy to explain, again, naturally, perfectly. And even if it wasn't, that's still not evidence of anything because it's just something you can't explain. So no, like everything you just mentioned isn't evidence at all. Like, so yes, there are people, and it's not just past religions. There are people who follow groups throughout all time. The fact that they aren't analogous today or 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago, there are always groups of people following charismatic other people. It's a thing throughout all time. It's not just it's somehow special because it's 2,000 years ago. And my analogies and examples aren't specifically just about this time. Those are just the ones that came to mind first. This happens throughout all time. So again, none of that is special. This is all common things that happen every day. The sun rises tomorrow. That's not going to be evidence of a God. We already know that's going to happen. We already know people follow charismatic people. We already know people have bereavement delusions. We already know people have bereavement delusions of people they persecute because of guilt complexes. None of that is special. This is all like super common knowledge stuff that is super easy to explain under naturalism. There's not even a question there.
Okay, so since you said we have to have evidence and it has to be able to show something is true, what evidence do you have that somebody had a bereavement delusion, turned around their life and started preaching for somebody for the next 40 years? What evidence do you have to say that bereavement delusion is going to lead somebody to do something like what Paul did? Because you must have evidence, because otherwise we can't justify your claim.
Because we see people changing their lives all the time for lots of reasons.
Name one. Name one who had a bereavement delusion and turned their lives around.
It doesn't need to be bereavement. We know people turn their lives around all the time for lots of different reasons. So having a bereavement delusion being the reason is not a stretch at all. It's like saying there's lots of reasons people change their life around: losing weight, changing religion, changing political structure, getting married, all kinds of reasons that people turn their lives around. Like there's just no limit on what could. You can see Francis Collins saw a 3-tiered waterfall in the forest and came to God and turned his life around for that. Like people turn their lives around for any random reason you can think of because people are silly. That isn't the fact that they would do it for a bereavement delusion is not surprising at all. Again, just super common thing that we know about humans all around the world throughout all time. Humans do silly things and change their lives for all kinds of reasons. So that isn't really something I need to provide evidence for. It's just common knowledge.
Okay, so basically you're saying that Paul had a bereavement delusion. Are you familiar with the story of Paul on the road to Damascus?
Yes.
Okay, so what does Paul say happened to him or what does Luke document, I should say, that happened to Paul on the road to Damascus?
He saw Jesus, or he saw like a vision of something. I don't think he actually described Jesus. It was more like just energy or something that he couldn't explain, and he attributed it to Jesus or heard a voice or something.
And what was he doing at the time?
Persecuting Christians or going to persecute Christians or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So he's going down the road to Damascus. He's on the heels of having just gone to the Jews to get legal legal support for the fact that he was going to go and arrest Christians, people following the way over in Damascus. So he's on his way to Damascus. He's got his papers. He's ready to go. He cannot wait to get there because he's going to be able to go house to house to house. To go inside the houses, arresting people and pulling them out. That's the plan. He's got people accompanying him. And suddenly he says that he sees Jesus. And Jesus said, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? He said, who are you, Lord? I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. So then suddenly Paul can't see. He's blinded for a few days. As soon as then suddenly he can see after 3 days. Ananias came in and was able to touch him and the blindness went away. And for the next 40 or so years, he preached for Jesus. Now this doesn't sound like a bereavement delusion. You're not looking at the whole story for what actually happened.
That sounds exactly like a bereavement delusion. In fact,
so he's on his way to Damascus with his papers to get ready to go house to house and arrest the Christians. And you're saying that suddenly out of the blue, he just has this bereavement delusion.
Yes. If you kill lots of people, there's probably going to be lingering guilt inside of you. It's not like he was just completely unaffected, like, I'm killing Christians and having fun with this. It's probably that he suffered from serious guilt issues for massively killing lots of people, like most people do. And so those guilt issues built up inside of him to some point have this bereavement delusion. Like there's nothing surprising about that at all. The fact that he was in the middle of his job to go persecute more Christians isn't like evidence of anything. Like, yes, so many Nazis who are going to kill Jews would have bereavement delusions and break down from guilt on the way to do their job and then stop doing their job. Like that, yes, that's happened all the time.
Oh, you have evidence of that?
Yes.
Where's that? Where can I find that? There are
many accounts of Nazis and people who have killed other people saying they had guilt and then recanted and stopped.
While they're on their way to kill them. While they're on their way to kill them, you're saying that there are people on their way to kill somebody. And so what evidence do you have
Yes,
for that?
That is super, super common. People on the way to kill someone like, oh, I have guilt, I'm not going to do that. That happens all the time, actually.
Okay, so what evidence? Like, can you reference a book or a study, anything that I can go find? Because I believe that it could be possible. I just want to find the reference.
Yeah, most like murder cases go through someone is going to going to try to commit a murder, and then they stop and then turn away. Most murders go that way. They actually don't follow through. That's just common police knowledge. It's not like you actually commit and then go through with it more often than you commit and then change your mind. That happens more often than not. So there's nothing about that that's surprising. Again, that's super common. I'm not even following your point here. So even if we granted that he wanted to kill Christians and then had like a epileptic shock or something, seizure, that would still be better evidence than miracle. Like there are lots of different natural ways to explain that, and they're all better than a new magical thing happened that we have no evidence for in reality. So even if you don't want to accept the bereavement illusion, there's still about a million other natural ways to explain that, none of which involve magic.
So what's another way to explain it? If
Epilepsy, shock, human
do we have evidence Paul had epilepsy?
We don't. We have evidence that humans have epilepsy. So it's possible he had epilepsy because humans have epilepsy. Like if I said I saw a dog, that's reasonable to believe because we have lots of evidence of dogs. So saying Paul had epilepsy is reasonable to believe because we have evidence of people with epilepsy. It is not reasonable to believe Paul saw magic because we have no evidence of magic. That's like the I saw a unicorn. So Paul had epilepsy. No matter how improbable it is, it's always going to be better than magic because we have no evidence of magic. Just like I saw a dog is always more reasonable than I saw a unicorn. There's no case in which saying I saw a dog is less reasonable than unicorn.
So we do have, when I go back to Barbara Comiskey Snyder, we actually have evidence of people who were in the church who saw her walking, who had seen her in a wheelchair, and who knew about the radio station praying for her. So using your same argument, I'd say we have evidence today of a miracle. Therefore, a miracle could have happened in the past.
Which part of that was evidence of a miracle? Again, that's a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. So I can just grant she walked. I don't know anything about her story, so I don't know one way or the other. But let's just say she did walk in the church.
Like, and suddenly wasn't blind, and suddenly didn't have crumpled up feet, and suddenly her atrophy.
Yeah, I can just grant all of that. That's still not evidence of a miracle because here's an event that's happened. What does it take to be a miracle for you? Testable predictions.
What does it take?
Testable predictions. Testable predictions. So again, saying here's an event that happened, and I can explain that as a miracle isn't evidence. Like we can explain it as magic or aliens or unknown natural causes. We can say an event happened and explain it in infinitely many ways. None of that is evidence. For it to be evidence, you need to say, if my hypothesis is true, we're going to make a prediction about what happens in the future and then get that right. Just saying miraculous thing happened, we're going to label it miracle, isn't evidence. That's like, again, the magic rabbit's foot. Rubbing a magic rabbit's foot and then having this happen isn't evidence it's caused by the rabbit's foot. Just because some event happened and there was prayers beforehand does not mean the event was caused by the prayers. That's a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy.
Give you a chance to respond in a second, SJ. I just wanted to mention we will go, before going to the Q&A, we will have 5-minute closings, but that's in just a little bit. Want to give you a heads up that we'll probably go for maybe about another 5 or 10 minutes and then go into those closing statements followed by Q&A. So thanks so much. Back to you, SJ and Tom.
Thank you. I just want to say I really appreciate Tom's politeness. I've never been in a debate with him. Actually, I have. We talked about something once. We had more people in it, though.
Abortion.
But yeah, we did abortion. I forgot about that. But I really have to commend you for that. I think it's a wonderful thing. It's very easy to talk to you, even though we don't have an agreement here. I have to say that it's very easy to talk to you, and so I'll debate with you or talk to you anytime. So I'm enjoying this, and I like your chair too. We all have to get a chair like that because that chair is like rocking, man. So, but I just want to say, I would say that we have pretty good evidence of miracles today, and I'd say we have evidence of miracles in the past. And I'd say just by looking at the example of Jesus and what he did to societies and Western societies is also evidence that led even somebody like Tom Holland, who wrote the book Dominion, from his agnosticism to Christianity. He just identified some of the things that Christians have done through the years and the value that they give to individuals. And he said, wow, it's pretty amazing that obviously this man who came is pretty special. So it's my argument.
Yeah. So we're doing the conclusions now, right? Is that was the conclusion, or
was that your conclusion, SJ, or were you just giving a rebuttal to Tom's last statement?
Oh, yeah, I can do a conclusion.
Okay. Trying to remember, I think we had SJ start, so we'll have SJ start the conclusions as well, and then we'll flip it over to Tom for his roughly 5-minute closing. Then we will go into the Q&A.
Okay, so I want to say thank you to Tom. Thank you to all of you. In my conclusion, I want to say the way that you mentioned Francis Collins, and I want to say one of the things that he did under that waterfall was he reflected on C.S. Lewis's trilemma. And C.S. Lewis's trilemma is what led me to Christianity. One of the ways that I was led to Christianity, it was a bunch of things that kept happening right around the same time. But I got the book from a pastor's recommendation, a chance meeting on an airplane. And I read this passage. And as soon as I read it, it was almost as if God had filled me with just the spirit of yes, this is the truth. And here's what it is. A man who is merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on a level with a man who says he is a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about him being a great human teacher. He has not let that open to us. He did not intend to. So that basically is one of the ways that I thought supported this thing. And another thing is, the last thing I'm going to say is, we do have all of the theories that the people have created to try to refute the resurrection are not with merit. Some have said that he faked his death, but we have no ancient evidence for that. It fails to explain the change in the apostles. Some say he had a twin. We have no ancient evidence of that. That also fails to explain the change in the apostles. Some say he was buried in a mass grave. We have no ancient evidence either. 1 Corinthians 15 is an early creed within a few years of Jesus' resurrection that refutes it, but also so does what Josephus and Tacitus said, and also in Deuteronomy 21. That shows that Jewish people buried people even if they were criminals. Disciples stole the body. We have no body, and that fails to explain the change in the apostles. Mass hallucination, like dreams, those are internal and they can't be shared. Plus, Jesus appeared to them in many modes where they couldn't see, hear, where they could see, hear, touch, and be in his presence. The apostles conspired, some might say, but people don't risk their lives for decades for a lie. They were uniquely positioned to know the truth. And then the last one is someone would say miracles are impossible, but yet we do have evidence for miracles today, as I pointed out. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We will kick it over to Tom for his 5-minute closing and go into the Q&A after. Thanks so much, Tom and SJ.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, if I told you I saw a dog, that's reasonable to believe. If I told you I saw a unicorn, that's not reasonable to believe. The difference is that dogs have an implicit empirical basis. And so unicorns don't. So there's no reason to believe unicorns exist just because I said so. The same thing applies to the resurrection. There's no evidence of miracles at all. Not today, not in the past, ever, at any time. They've never been shown to be anything more than imaginary. They're just people saying, here's something I can't explain, and I'm going to label it as a miracle. It's post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. Every single time we try to test any type of miracles in a scientific setting to show they actually are real, it fails 100% of the time, just like homeopathy and dowsing and all the other pseudosciences. There's just no basis for that. So to believe that, like, just pick the worst possible natural explanation of the account of the gospel. Say Jesus had 10 twin brothers, octuplet or whatever, and there was a mass delusion of epic proportions that every 10,000 people all had a mass delusion or just imagined it to be the case. That explanation is still better than miracles. I mean, miracles is that bad. It has no basis at all. So anything we can just cobble together of random natural possibilities of delusion or epilepsy, they all had epilepsy at the exact same time. That is still a better explanation than miracles, because miracles has no evidential basis at all. So the miracle explanation of Jesus' resurrection is just terrible. The flat earth literally has more evidence than that. Than the resurrection of Jesus, because at least we can see things on flat earth. At least they present things we can see. They have a basis of some kind. The resurrection of Jesus has no evidence whatsoever. All we have is a bunch of assertions that stuff happened that has no basis in reality, like saying I saw a unicorn.
We will now go into the Q&A. So thanks so much, folks, for all of your questions. Really excited to read through these, and want to let you know just a couple of quick things. As I mentioned, both the speakers are linked in the description, and you can check out their channels as well. John Lloyd, thanks for your super chat, who said, thank you for your time, TJump and SJ. You got some street cred, guys. John Lloyd, thanks for your super chat, who also said, and thank you, James. Appreciate that, John Lloyd. Then Apollo Jedi, thanks for your super chat, who said, thanks for never giving up. Despite your internet provider failing, you found a way for us to hear today's debates. Hit like. Thanks so much, Apollo Jedi. That means a lot, because when we have tech issues, it's like, believe me, nobody feels worse about it than I do. It's honestly, so I appreciate that support. That is positivity. Holy Skepticism, thanks for your super chat, who said, thanks for all of your hard work to James and the debaters and persevering. Proud to support. We'll appreciate that, Holy Skepticism. Veckel, thanks for your super chat, who said, to my sister SJ, he is risen, in all caps.
Amen.
Gotcha. Michael Dresden, thanks for your super chat, who said, hope Tom, you got a critic, Tommy. Michael Dresden, regular neighborhood troll, says, hope Tom doesn't lose 2 in a row after last night.
Yeah, those pictures of dinosaurs and the fake footprints are just such damning evidence. There's nothing I can do against that. It's just the greatest evidence ever.
Gotcha. Next up, appreciate your super chat from Sigifredo Sarabia with a lot of emoticons. Thanks so much. Appreciate your support. Henrik Simonson, thanks for your super chat, who said, many religions survived and grew despite rulers, etc. By that metric, we should all worship many religions at once. Nah, I'm not convinced, SJ.
Okay, well, many religions aren't represented by Jesus Christ, so it's through Jesus that Christianity is completely different from these other religions.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Next up, thanks for your super chat, writer John Buck, who says, Christ is risen. Dwayne Burke, thanks for your super chat, who said, Carol Baskin is TJump's ma'am. Or mom. I am confused. I'm trying to remember who Carol Baskin is. I thought I saw her recently.
I don't know who Carol Baskin is.
All right. John Lloyd, thanks for your super chat, who said, modern day debate, would TJump prefer Jesus? In other words, in parentheses, believed in heaven, or Ted Bundy, in parentheses, believed when he was in prison as a neighbor. Thank you.
Would I rather have Jesus or Ted Bundy as a neighbor? Probably
yes.
Jesus.
Gotcha. Let's see. Trying to make sense of that one, John. Forgive me if I've butchered it, but we can come back to it if you clarify for me. Brian Stevens, thanks for your super chat. Josephus says Josephus was so convinced he remained a Jew. Oh, SJ is coming at you.
No, there's definitely a group of people who've remained Jews, but a lot of Jewish people are in the Jews for Jesus, or I'd refer you to somebody like Michael Brown. Dr. Michael Brown did a lot of investigation of the Old Testament and came to believe in Jesus because he realized the passages like Isaiah 53 really point to him.
Gotcha. Appreciate your super chat from Movie Theory, who says, Tom, in all caps, already lost, in all caps, sad he doesn't even realize it.
Yes. I also have $1 million in my bank account and I don't realize it too. All right.
Thank you, Brian Stevens, for your super chat, who said, but prayers over the radio work, ...
Can you heal an amputee, please? Demonstrate that. I count that. If you can do that, that's evidence.
Hold on, this one's for SJ, not for you, Tom.
Prayers over. I'm not saying that prayers from afar cannot work. I'm just saying that the chances of a prayer from afar for a stranger working over the loved ones praying for somebody is, it seems to me that the loved ones' prayers would be a little bit stronger because they're more sincere. And so my basic point is, in Barbara's case, is she didn't just have the radio prayers. She also had the prayers of her whole family and her whole church.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. And thanks so much for your super chat from Dwayne Burke, who says TJump's chair resurrected from the dump. Oh, it's a nice chair, though.
I like that chair.
It's his clamshell chair.
That's really funny.
Apollo Jedi, thanks for your super chat, who said, Tom getting destroyed right now. Correction, in all caps, spanked.
By my imaginary Jesus. Yep. I had a bereavement delusion of Jesus spanking me. It's so true.
You got a lot of criticism. Skeptic Wiz, thanks for your super chat, who says SJ's in all caps. I don't know what the all caps is. This is in all caps, dismantling Tom right now. Bad.
Yep. Totally happened. I think maybe he had a bereavement delusion.
Arn Rurvik, thanks for your super chat, who said children ain't thriving in the hood. SJ want to help me, quote, relocate them.
Relocate children who aren't thriving in the hood. Yep, certainly if there's some sort of ways we can work with them.
Gotcha.
If there's something we can do, yeah, contact me.
Appreciate that. Next up, appreciate your super chat from our, let's see, Skeptic Wiz again. Let's see. That's like a duplicate. So I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Arn Rurvik, thanks for your super chat, who said, SJ, who'd you rather want to be, the relocated or the relocator?
The relocator. Giving's more important than receiving.
Gotcha. Next up, appreciate your super chat from our Arn Rurvik again, who says, question for SJ, if you were a sword-bearing relocator, do you think you'd ever get a good night's sleep?
No, I wouldn't want to forcibly relocate anybody. I thought he meant if people really want to get out of a bad place, if there's a way that we can peaceably relocate them, peacefully relocate them, I should say.
Gotcha.
If they want to be relocated. So,
Robert Summers, thanks for your super chat, who said, besides personal testimony, what is the evidence for the resurrection? I haven't heard any yet.
Well, I'd say that I think when you look at the basic facts, even extra biblically, and you put them all together and you say, what's the best explanation of these different facts? It points to Jesus. And I would also say that the fulfilled 330 prophecies in the Old Testament, like ones like Daniel 9, Daniel 9 gave us a specific date for when the Anointed One was going to be coming into the temple. And that actually happened exactly 483 years after the decree of Artaxerxes in 444 BC. So we've got a specific time. We've got, even from the Jewish people, a specific time when they expected the Messiah. So that kind of thing, I think, plays a pretty good case for the resurrection of Jesus.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Next up, super chat from, let's see, got Robert Apollo Jedi, who said, never seen someone get as destroyed as Tom right now.
Nathan in the chat mentioned the questions about the relocation were in reference to when SJ said that God relocates Canaanite children to heaven. That was the point they were trying to make.
Okay. I didn't know that's what I thought he was talking about. People like, say, in a bad part of town or something who want to get out.
Gotcha. Next up, appreciate it. We'll get to your super chat, Xanos Carthage. We're working our way through the list. Appreciate it. Carmel Crunk, thanks for your super chat, who says, TJump, after Jesus' crucifixion, what caused the events which allowed and led to the rise of Christianity from a small backwater province in Rome?
The exact same things that allowed the growth of literally every religion from backwater places literally everywhere in the world. So people are people. That's the extent of what's required there.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Sigifredo Sarabia in the house, straight out of LA. Appreciate it. Says, Acts 21:21. James confronts Saul, or Paul, on rumors that Paul had become an apostate on the entire Mosaic law. If Paul killed James through Christian Jewish people, is Paul's religion correct, or is it James, the brother of Jesus? I think they mean, like, is it his religion instead?
That's kind of a hard. So if Paul killed James because James said Paul, they were arguing over the circumcision, and they were arguing whether or not to allow Gentiles not get circumcised, who are uncircumcised, to join the movement. And so I don't think that any argument like that is something that would lead to anybody killing. And of course, Paul said to follow his example many times because he was trying to exemplify Jesus. And Jesus said, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. He didn't kill anybody.
I think the point they were trying to make is that you mentioned that these people were persecuted for their beliefs, and you implied that made it more likely it was true. So if those two people had a disagreement and one of them killed the other, based off of your argument, it would seem like whoever was killed, well, their belief is more likely true because they died for their belief. I think that's the point they were trying to make.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that because they died for their belief, it makes the belief true. That's absolutely not something I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say when you put together the cumulative evidence for the resurrection and you look at all of the information that we have, fulfilled prophecies, all of the minimal facts, all that kind of stuff. You look at undesigned coincidences in the Gospels, and when you put all that together and you say, what's the best explanation? It's Jesus resurrected. It's not just one piece of the puzzle. You've got to look at the whole puzzle.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks for your super chat from Nick, who says, SJ, chapter and verse in the Bible where Jesus appears to James. You said he appeared to James.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 15.
Gotcha. Opposer of religion, thanks for your super chat, who says, thanks for your channel. I seriously love it. Thanks to the debaters as well. There's no channel like MDD. Well, appreciate that positive encouragement.
Nope, sound is still off. Yeah.
Your kind words. Appreciate that. And let me just check here if I've got the Yeti plugged in or if
it's working. It's working.
Perfect. But yes, thanks so much, Opposer of Religion. We appreciate that encouragement, especially on a hard day. Movie Theory, thanks for your super chat, who said, Tom making stuff up. He can't cite any sources, LOL. If you want, you can respond. You don't have to.
The Bible. There you go. Source. Done.
Gotcha. Next up,
Well,
appreciate
I think he was referring, I think, to the idea that people have this bereavement stuff, and he was talking about the Nazis having it. And so I didn't know if he had a source for that.
Not on the top of my head. I can get you one, but they're pretty common. Again, 15% of the population, everyone has them. Pretty common.
I think it came up, I think it was when the question was like, do people have guilt on their way to kill somebody? But whatever.
Same thing. Yeah, again, it's pretty common.
Movie Theory, thanks for your super chat again, who says, Tom's cringe script is painful to listen to.
Good.
I'll just read the rest of their stuff. They said Tom lost 2 in a row in all caps. Neff last night and now LOL. This guy's a troll. I'm sorry. It's just so like the trolling's so obvious. I don't know if it's gonna work. But go ahead if you want to respond, Tom. If you're angry, you can respond.
It's all right. James can pay me for my disservices.
Next up, Charles Bradley, thanks for your super chat, who says, SJ, where are the amputee healing miracles?
Well, I haven't seen any amputee healing miracles, but I'd say somebody with a collapsed lung and legs that are all curled up, and the fact that she's blind is a pretty distinctive miracle.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Appreciate your super chat from, let's see, Beta Whore Energy. She says, SJ, if you don't believe in group hallucinations, how do you explain people seeing Mary on a rooftop? For example, 4 Coptic bishops authenticated this, and 50,000 people seeing the sun hop around at Fatima.
I would actually, if all of those people made that claim and they seemed sincere, I probably would be likely to me that say that probably happened.
Gotcha. Appreciate your super chat from Subtracted, who says, why won't God heal amputees?
Why won't God heal amputees? I think people ask that question because they don't want to pay attention to what God does heal. God's healed blind people. He's healed the deaf. He actually, when Peter went and took a sword to the ear of the soldier who was capturing him, the ear came off, and Peter, in the story, that Jesus put the ear back on. So actually that is sort of an amputation of an ear that Jesus put right back on the person's head.
I think the reason they do that is because we have natural ways to explain all the other healings, like sight and ulcers and mental things, but not for arms. We've never seen that happen naturally. So that would be a good miracle.
Let's see. We'll let SJ have the last word on that one just because it was originally for her. And then we're going to go to this next one. Robert Summers, thanks for your super chat. We're going to work down the list and get to that. SJ, if you want to respond, you can. Otherwise, I'll go to the next one.
No, I would just say I think there are miracles out there. I definitely think when somebody asked if I'm a Catholic in the chat, I used to be a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I'm not anymore, but I do believe that Mother Mary has made appearances to people. So I have pretty strong beliefs in that.
Gotcha. Arn Rurvik, thanks for your super chat, who says, SJ, why did all the miracles stop when the camera phone was invented? Look it up.
I think there's still miracles happening today. Just like I pointed out in China with a study in the Pew study, there's thousands of people saying miracles have happened today. So I don't think that they've stopped by any stretch.
Gotcha. Josephus Rivero, thanks for your super chat, who said, thanks for yet another great debate. Thumbs up. Appreciate that, Josephus. All credit to the speakers. Brad Iverson, thanks for your super chat, who says, does Tom think testimony is evidence?
Yes, testimony is evidence of things that already have an empirical basis, but if it doesn't have an empirical basis, then no testimony cannot be evidence for it.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Next up, appreciate your, let's see, super chat from our dearest friend, Adam Burkholtz, who said, how can we show Jesus did not resurrect if indeed he didn't? Jesus doesn't talk or do anything living people do, so why call him alive?
I'd say today Jesus makes a lot of appearances in people's lives, including my own. The reason I came back to Jesus is because he's made himself known to me in significant spiritual ways. And so I think he's working, and I'm not alone. I'm one of probably billions of people who's he's impacting, including a lot of people over Muslim countries are saying that they're starting to see Jesus in their dreams and things like that, even though they had never planned to worship him in that way.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. And Nick, thanks for your super chat. We're working down the list. We'll definitely get to it, and we appreciate it. Sigifredo Sarabia from Los Angeles, thanks for your super chat, who says, Tom Jump, if Jesus existed and didn't do what's in the Gospels, what did he really do? If not, what answer do you have for New Testament scholars or historians?
All of the things that are natural and accounted for by natural processes, he probably did do. Those are like accepted by history. So there's not really any controversy there. He did all the things that people said they did, like walking to places. He just didn't do the miracles. The miracles are just all made up.
Gotcha. Thanks for your super chat from Dwayne Burke, who says, TJump, the love child of Rolf Harris and Joe Exotic.
Those the Tiger guys?
Everybody wants TJump to be their son.
That's true.
I think those are the
McCrae?
the Tiger King show. I think those guys.
I'm looking up Rolf Harris. He's apparently 89, and he was recently seen using a walking stick as he was delivering. Page is still loading. It's embarrassing. As he was delivering paintings to neighbors near his Berkshire home. Is that your dad? Thanks for that super chat from Brandon Ardeline, who said, I want to hear a miracle that can't be debunked by science, psychology, or common sense. Also, why are modern miracles so wimpy compared to the Bible's?
I'd make an argument like the Barbara Comiskey Snyder one. I'd have everybody just go look her up. I think that's hardly wimpy. So,
gotcha. Thanks so much for your super chat from Franks92, who said to SJ, why did Jesus leave after he resurrected?
Yeah, so Jesus resurrected and he left 40 days later. He appeared to people over a period of 40 days. And then during the Pentecost, he was raised into heaven. And the reason he says he was doing that at that point is because the Holy Spirit would come back and fill everybody up with courage, love, power, all that kind of stuff. And so then that was the reason. So the Holy Spirit is sort of working through everyone who calls on him.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Next up, appreciate your super chat from Xenos Carthage, who says, what's their opinions on turtles? You guys like turtles?
Yeah, I love turtles.
Yeah, turtles are nice. They taste really good in soup.
Tom.
Oh, no, poor turtle.
Thanks for your super chat. Robert Summers, who says, what radio station do we need to get involved to get God to miraculously stop kids from dying from cancer? Why doesn't he care about them?
Oh, what did I hear on that? I heard a really good explanation for something like that today, and I can't remember now. I'm forgetting exactly what it was, but basically, God sets our beginning dates and our ending dates according to his plan, and he's sovereign and he made us, so he's within his rights to do that.
Gotcha. Thanks, Brian Stevens, for your Patreon question. Said, did the members of Heaven's Gate die for something that is true or something they believed to be true?
They died for something that is false, but they believed it to be true. But Heaven's Gate didn't see the risen Jesus. They didn't see Jesus over 40 days. They didn't eat with him. There was nothing like that. It's not a comparable. It's a false equivalency.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for your super chat from Nick. Says, then he appeared to James. This is quoting 1 Corinthians 15. Then to all the apostles. That's 1 Corinthians 15. But in the Gospels, he appears to the apostles first. Contradiction. Thank you, Eshe. We have evidence of a contradiction in the Bible, folks.
No, it actually says he didn't appear to James. He appeared to Peter first. Then he appeared to the 500. Then he appeared to James. I'm sorry, he appeared to Peter, then the 12, then the 500, then to James. And that's exactly how it works out, because James wasn't one of the ones who was following him with the 12 apostles initially. So he appeared to what they call the 12, which was the people who were holed up, essentially trying to hide from being persecuted.
Gotcha. Robert Blair, thanks for your final super chat. They said, SJ, God said you need this. In love, Papa Legba.
What's that?
I don't know. That's interesting. Appreciate that. So do appreciate it, folks. I had one more from Brian Stevens. and then we can wrap up. It's been a fun time, folks. I've got to kind of hammer away at some stats research stuff that I'm behind on, embarrassingly. Let's see. Appreciate your kind words, Adam Burkholtz. And Adam Abilia, thanks for your Patreon comment, said, TJump, if you ever need a kidney, I'm here. Just keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. My kidneys are good. I do need a new car, though.
Gotcha. Adam, I'm so sorry. I think I mispronounced. Did it again. Adam Albilia. Appreciate your question, comment. And then, let's see. Martianista, thanks for your kind words, who said, thank you for a civil, entertaining debate, and thank you to your debaters, Dr. S.J. Thomason and TJump.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Totally appreciate your positive words, peeps. Really nice. And then, where is that? There it is. Brian Stevens says, does SJ also believe the claims from Islam regarding miracles? They have lots of witnesses too.
No, I don't believe those claims.
Gotcha.
And I think the only one that he's referring to, the only miracle that I've heard of, and I could be completely mistaken because I'm not that familiar with Islam, but I think the one with Muhammad roping the moon, I don't think that was evidenced by a whole bunch of people.
I mean,
I don't know.
Muhammad cut the moon in half, but I think he was meaning modern
half.
Muslims. Modern Muslims experience miracles at the same rate as Christians do, or something like that. I think that's the claim he's making, not about.
Okay, that's what he's saying. I don't think that I think God works miracles for all peoples. So I don't see any reason to think that Muslims wouldn't experience miracles. God loves them too.
Thanks so much, folks. I appreciate this every time. It's always seriously a blast to be here. You guys are just goofy in the chat. Appreciate getting to hang out with you there as well. And so do want to remind you one last time, I put both Tom's and Dr. SJ's links in the description. Last super chat just flew in from Dean Meadows. Thanks for that. Said, Tom, what would convince you a miracle took place?
Decimal prediction. So if you say, I believe miracles happen, and if a miracle happens, like for example, if I pray to a God, if I say, if miracles are true, and I pray to a God and a gold brick will appear, and then I pray to a God and a gold brick appears, that would convince me a miracle happens. So it's just any kind of testable predictions where you take the hypothesis miracles happen, predict that they will occur in the future, and then we observe them occurring in the future in that way that you predicted, that would be evidence.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. And do want to let you know, folks, things that we're excited about. Want to let you know, if we ever have a debate, if you ever see it on our channel as like an upcoming stream, want to let you know we are willing to host, or I should say, basically we're willing to give a shout out to and also put the link in the description of anybody who wants to do an after show. So it doesn't matter which side it is. If it's like an after show that is like a Christian channel, an atheist channel, we will link both sides, or just the one side, whoever wants to have the after show. And we will, like I said, mention it. If you just do me a favor, email me the link before the stream if you plan on doing that. And then also just want to say, I can't say thanks enough. It's always a true pleasure here. We have postponed the Team Skeptic versus Flat Earth Aussie debate. That's probably maybe going to be next Saturday, depending on how things pan out. So that will not be tonight. However, very excited that we will also not be having a debate tomorrow, but we will be back Monday, and we are going to be having that tag team debate I mentioned at the bottom right of your screen. And we've got a lot of other really fun ones coming up, folks. I'm honestly pumped. It's just been a blast. So thanks so much, folks. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. And last, again, thanks to our speakers, and also thanks to Praise for running OBS running OBS for us today. As you've probably all heard, that my internet has crashed earlier today. At least it just kind of intermittently crashes, so we can't really do streams on it. So Praise, if you're there, we are ready to go off air. Are you there, Praise? Do you want to say hi? Thank you very much. Very nice, very charming. Okay, but yes, you guys want to hear really quick? It's my Praise impression, but it's been totally debunked. Gosh. So yeah, that's Dr. Josh does an even better one. It's hilarious. So thanks so much, folks. We hope you have a great rest of your day.